Hey friends, welcome back to The Production Pastor. If you're new here, The Production Pastor is all about helping you and your teams grow as technical artists and disciples of Jesus. I'm sorry I missed you last week. I was actually on vacation, and even though I challenged myself to have a video every single week for the month of June, I even sat down to record something last week, but just didn't have the time on the back end to edit and publish it like I wanted to. However, I still want to share with you a little bit about that because I've been going through this book, I Love Jesus, But I Hate Christmas by Todd Elliott, which just came out at Philo this past year. And I think it's one of the best books on production ministry I've ever read. And so last week when I sat down to talk about it, I really talked about some of my own thoughts, why I really enjoy the book and why I think you should pick up a copy. Here, check it out. In this book, I think Todd does a fantastic job of really naming and understanding the challenges that tech artists face in the church. The main reason I love this is Todd gets it. Todd has worked in ministry for years, in production, in all different areas of production, and this book really helps you understand the basics. It talks about the challenges, talks about us being tenacious and just holding out for the long haul in our work that we do. The first section of the book actually walks us through talking about being truly an artist, being a technical artist, not being just a button pusher or a light aimer, but really being someone who, when they do their job well, is actually creating art. And then as he moves through that and talks about it, he then kind of helps us understand how, if we really are artists, how we can then master the basics of production. Once we've kind of mastered the basics of production, he then moves us on to think of how can we then be better at collaborating with our other creative counterparts as we make services come together. Finally, one of my favorite parts about this book is his section on leadership, specifically here in chapter 33, Tenacity to Lead. He says, making the transition to becoming a leader can be one of the most difficult challenges you will experience. It involves losing a little bit of your identity as a technical artist. If you thought you were in a behind-the-scenes role before, now you are a leader who is even more behind the scenes, working toward giving your team what they need to succeed as technical artists. He goes on, leadership can be a lonely place, as many of you have discovered and many more soon will find out. I often have the familiar statement, first in, last out, in my mind as it pertains to technical artists. For the leader of this group, it could be even more extreme. You are the first and the last of the first in, last out group. In this lonely place, you need to learn how to lead yourself to keep moving forward. If you can't keep going, you can't expect to be able to lead your team forward. Leadership will be the most difficult thing you'll do, but it can also be the most rewarding. And he wraps the chapter up by saying, as someone who has gone on the journey from operator/booth sitter to leader of tech people, I hope this section on leadership helps you make the transition. He's really laid it out in a way that I think tech people can understand. I think most of us are not avid readers who are just gonna chunk through a giant thick book, but these are nice, simple 3 or 4 page chapters. And then at the end of each chapter, he's actually got some discussion questions, which I think really help challenge you as either a leader or as a technical artist, but it also can lead to great conversation then that you could have with your teams. So again, Todd's book is I Love Jesus, But I Hate Christmas. And if you haven't picked up a copy, I'd highly recommend the book, and there's even a link for you in the description below so you can grab a copy for yourself. For this week's video, I want to talk to you about something that's really important for us, especially as technical leaders, and that's the idea of checking in on people. This past Christmas Eve, I was scrolling through Instagram, just checking out what other people were doing, how subs were going. It's the busiest, craziest day of the year for most of us, and just like to see what people are doing. And as I was scrolling around, I got a reply to something from a guy named Stephen Bird, who's actually a technical director in the Virginia Beach area. I was just asking him how he was doing, how he was feeling in the midst of everything, and it was a short conversation. It was maybe just like 5 or 6 messages back and forth. But fast forward to January or so, he and I got to hang out on a FaceTime call and meet up, and he was just telling me how meaningful that conversation was to him. He was telling me he had just run from one campus to another campus to another campus, like troubleshooting things that were going wrong, setting up totally new things for their Christmas Eve services. And then he stopped at a gas station to get gas, and it was like everyone and their grandmother was there, and he was just at the point of overwhelm. The thing that strikes me so much about this conversation was I didn't do anything to help him. I was 2 hours away in my own city. I wasn't there to help him get anything set up or move gear around or troubleshoot anything or check in on his family. Like, I just sent him a couple messages, and that was somehow all it took, was the fact that I cared and that I saw him and that I listened to what was going on in his life. And that, I think, is really the power of checking in on people. And as I've thought about that more and gotten ready for this video this week, I think this is really part of the mission of the church, to check in on people. You see, when Jesus came, he didn't stay. Jesus left this earth, but left us with his Spirit, and he charged us as his church to be his representation here on the earth. And so checking in, as simple as it may sound, I think is the profound act of being the church. And so my challenge for this week is for you to ask yourself, who are the people God has put in my life and that God has entrusted me with? And then this week, what are maybe 3 or 4 or 5 either phone calls or conversations you can have with these people to just check in on how they're doing? Ask them how work is going, ask them how they're handling coronavirus, ask how they're doing spiritually, how you can pray for them, and then just listen. It doesn't have to be long and complicated. It could be a phone call, it could be some text messages, it could be a quick comment or a couple questions at a rehearsal that you're doing. It's a simple thing, but it's amazingly profound. And it's the way that we are not just technical people, but that we get to be pastoral with the people God has entrusted us with. So that's my challenge for you this weekend. Go have an awesome weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.